Hi everyone, my name is Dutch. If you're following from the subreddit post that I've undoubtedly made for this video, you won't know who I am. That's fine. If you're from Combined Arms, you know who I am, and you can use this as sort of instructional on ProTube, or the ProTube Gunstock anyway, like I've been talking about for weeks. I've recorded this voiceover because my headset microphone was not decent. It was not great quality. I didn't want to use that audio track. I've recorded this already and then realized my microphone was muted on my mixer. So this is my second time sitting here recording what is probably going to be like a 20-minute narration over this footage. So apologies if I sort of sound like I'm thinking, because I'm trying to remember what I said now. Okay, so what are we here for today? I'm here to talk specifically about, in my case, the ProTube VR Gunstock in H3VR. It's hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. And why am I talking about it in that specific a sense? Is because I don't think anyone has. I did a lot of searching for what it would be like in H3 to use a gunstock, and whilst I found people who were talking about what it was like to have a gunstock, and I would see footage of people playing H3 with one, no one was ever really talking honestly about what it meant to have that that experience. And I've got enough time behind it now that I want to talk about it. So my first point, and isn't so much a point about the overall thing, is I want to hit home that when you're using a gunstock, and there's probably a picture of the one I use, not mine specifically, but the one I bought up right now, you're introducing a physical object with set dimensions and a weight to it into both real space, but also into your VR space, and that changes the way that things interact. My gunstock is set up in a very specific way. The Mark 18 in game is my favorite rifle. I have a setup in the vault that I call my Mark 18 Gunfighter. I really, really love that setup. It's my favorite rifle build in H3. Okay. So I've set up my stock so that when I grab the weapon by the pistol grip, and I put my front cup into its magnetic position, because I have the magnetic cup version of the ProTube VR stock, my front controller marries up with my front grip flawlessly. I've also set it up in a way that my stock... Now, this isn't something... Unlike the front grip, this isn't a mechanical thing. My stock marries up pretty much perfectly with the Mark 18 stock when fully extended. That's personal preference and doesn't fundamentally affect it. I could have the stock completely all the way down to its lowest position. It would still work the same. But it does, of course, change the length of pull in-game, and I like a full-length A4 length of pull. I hold to the belief that that length of pull is the most efficient. It's the best length of pull for almost every user, except for edge cases. But that's a different topic, and not one that we're trying to talk about today. So my stock matches up with the Mark 18 perfectly. The end of my stock basically lines up with the end of the barrel on the Mark 18, absolutely to a millimeter. It's perfect. And what that means is that all AR-15 platforms in H3 work with my stock. Absolutely no issues. I can pick up anything with an AR-15 stock on it, to be honest, and work it fine. But obviously, there are more than AR-15s in H3 VR. There's quite a few other weapons. So let's talk about what it means to use those. Now, when you're playing H3 VR, there's probably, off the top of my list, what are the other major weapons you're going to want to use? AKs. You're probably going to want to use AKs, right? You're going to get behind your AK, and you're going to notice that the front cup matches up with the front grip really well, and the pistol grip obviously matches because it has to. That's where your weapons are picked up from. And then you're going to get into a cheek weld like you would be your AR-15 and realize that you're probably not quite seeing the front post of your weapon sight. And there's a reason for that, and it's not a fault of the stock, and it's not a fault of H3. It is a symptom of H3 being a sim and your gun stock not being built for AKs. It's that AKs use a chin weld, particularly your post-World War II Soviet traditional AK platform with the wooden furniture. They use a chin weld, they don't use a cheek weld. Now, your AK-12 prototypes, they use AR-15 style stocks, and you're going to get a cheek weld with those, very easily. Your traditional AKs, an optic will pretty much help with if you want to raise that, raise your head so much. But you're going to need a chin weld for the irons on an AK, and that's just a fact of life. That's just how it is. The dimensions don't match. It's not a fault of either your physical gunstock or the game, just how it is. Some other things are going to produce the same issue. They're off the top of my head. You can get behind, for example. What am I thinking? You can get behind, for example, a few of the shotguns, and the sights are never going to work. The 870 Express is the worst for it because the stock dips down so low, like an AK does. So yeah, physical dimension, the way your stock interacts and is shaped is going to change quite a bit. Just nothing you can do about it. When it comes to things that are too small, PDWs, SMGs, some are outright unusable. Especially on irons. The AEK, I think, when that really tiny little Russian PDW, you can put an optic on that and use it pretty much okay most of the time. But you're not going to get behind the irons on it, and it's never going to quite feel comfortable. There's a few others like that, and you'll just have to find them as you go. But that's just talking about the sight picture, right? You're probably noticing the footage of the AEK and going, that's a really short weapon. How does the front forend work, right? The front forend grip point. And that brings us to the things you can do to make so I want to say like 80% of the guns in game work, no issues, no real change required, right? No fiddling required. 10% of them need a little loophole to make workable. Now, I'm using controller geos on in this footage, but if they're off, you won't notice. This won't feel as weird. The MP7, for example, my favorite PDW in game, doesn't quite match up. Where my front grip is a little bit it's pretty much at the suppressor. So my solution, and the one that works flawlessly, is I grab the forend of the weapon with the magnetic cup off of the stock, and while still holding it, I place it back in position. My hand is a little further than it actually should be, but you don't notice it in motion or in practice. And what it means is suddenly you've taken 80% of the weapons being usable and made it 90 to 95% of them, because you can do this for most weapons. There will be some outliers, things like the mini Uzi. You can do that, but you'll never get behind the irons correctly. You're just never going to. It's just how it is. The eye relief isn't quite there. The stock isn't quite long enough. And again, it's just one of those things. You're going to have to take a note. Hey, if I get an Uzi, probably not going to be. It is what it is. Okay, so those are your major major cases that are going to be like throw you for a loop. Other ones that are going to are anything involving a real mechanical action, shotguns, for example. The saving grace of shotguns and lever actions is that when the cartridge or shell is loaded, the action can't be moved, at least not without another input. So what this means is I'll load a shotgun and I'll grab the pump with my front hand, pump it with the magnetic cup off of the stock, and then still holding it, I'll put it back on the stock for firing. You can do the same for lever actions, because you can use the front hand for lever actions rather than like using your backhand. Bolt actions are awkward. Bolt actions are awkward for two reasons, and one of them has nothing to do with the gun stock. I'll tangent for a little minute to complain about my least favorite feature of bolt actions in H3. When you grab a bolt in real life and you pull it back to eject a round, the bolt stops traveling after a certain point. It does. It can't travel all the way out of the weapon or it wouldn't work. What that translates to in VR, H3VR specifically, is your bolt stops moving, but you might have moved your hand quite aggressively to get the round ejected, just for speed or something, and your hand might keep traveling. Generally, when your hand is past the length of your buttstock on a bolt action rifle, you're no longer gripping the bolt, which means you go to slam it forward and nothing happens. That's not a fault of anything, that's just a little rant I have about bolt actions. I can't stand it, and it means that I just don't use them. I just don't like it. The other one is that operating the bolt while you're in the stock it's awkward. It can be worked around with a little practice, maybe unshouldering the weapon, which is totally a thing you can do. In fact, unshouldering it is what you're probably going to end up doing for a lot of mechanical actions, like reloading. I go to high ready when I reload to get over the fact that the Rift S controllers, the IR band generally clashes with either the stock or the other controller when manipulating stuff. So I go to high ready, and you could do that for bolt actions as well, I guess. But those are your edge cases, right? You've got things that are too short, things that you won't get behind the sight picture of, things that have mechanical action that can be really awkward, and things that just sort of get in the way. So my honest this is me being honest, is not everything's going to work perfectly. And if you're a big fan of, say, shotguns, you're probably not going to want a gun stock. If you only ever use shotguns, don't bother. But most other things work, so you can get around it, right? What's my other point I wanted to make? Oh yeah, movement. So I use arm swinger as my default movement system in H3. I think it's the most immersive, and I think it really gives you that, oh no, I'm quite exercise, but it gets you tired, right? And I will say, you'll get tired using a gun stock. It's a lot to keep shouldered all the time. You'll feel it. But arm swinger is not an option with a gun stock. You can move forward, and obviously you can turn if you were to like turn yourself around. But when you're trying to do micro movements with arm swinger, what you want to do is you want to rotate like the front or back controller in a way that you turn slightly for pieing doors and things. And it's not possible to do that on a gun stock. So you're stuck using something like 2 axes or twin stick. If you're a teleport user, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, there's really nothing you can do about it. So movement options are going to be suddenly, if you were used to using anything other than twin stick and 2 axes, you're shit out of luck. You're going to have to use them, I think, for real efficiency. So yeah, that's the major points. So I'll recap what my major points here are. Okay, point 1. You're introducing a physical object with its own set dimensions that aren't going to marry up with what you want to do in game 100% of the time. This is going to be prominent on SMGs, PTWs, shotguns, lever actions, and bolt actions. Not all of them, but some of them, but those will be the categories where it'll really start to fall apart. Your one-off sort of weirdo things, like the G11, are non-starter. It just does not work. I mean, look at the screen of the G11 while I have a cheat weld. Yeah, it's just not happening. You gotta come right off the stock, basically, to use it. It's just unusable. Other things, you're gonna change your movement options. That's just a fact of life. You're gonna have to do that. And I guess the thing I didn't really talk about is you're going to be slow for a little while. It's going to feel weird. It takes some practice to get used to taking the controllers and the cups off of the stock in a way that feels quick. But you'll get there. It took me 2 or 3 sessions before I got there, but I got there. And now it's like I've never had issues with it before. It's like I never had issues in the first place. So that's I want to say issues, but the points to keep in mind. What are the pros? The pros is you get 3 points of contact, meaning that recoil control and mitigation is much simpler. It feels natural. It feels cool. It feels immersive. That's what you want. And also it introduces subconsciously different ways of moving. You're going to move more realistically with a weapon than you would without it. And that's, I don't know if that's placebo because you're actually holding a stock, or if it's because I don't know if it's because the stock doesn't feel as, what's the word I'm looking for? When using the virtual stock, you can sort of spin your hands around however you want, and so long as you get back in firing position, the weapon will snap to place. You can't really do that with a stock, one, because you can't swing it around like mad. It's slung to you and your controllers are locked in place. But also, it just feels more natural to bring the weapon like down and around things in a way that is realistic. You'll find yourself doing it subconsciously, and then you'll realize, like, why wasn't I ever doing that before, right? So those are the main points. I wanted to get this video to be under 20 minutes, and it seems like I'm managing it. Hopefully my recording held up, and I've got enough footage to go along with this voiceover that it makes sense when I'm talking. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to talk about whether certain weapons work, or if you've got a gun stock and you have issues and you want to maybe know what you can do to mitigate it, please ask me. Maybe I've solved it already. And hopefully this video can stand as like this is what H3VR is like to play with a physical gun stock. So yeah, that's it for me. If you want to see some VR content, I've got some VR content coming out soon, but you don't have to. This is sort of a PSA or a 101 instructional than anything else, and I hope it was something that people were looking for that can be of use. So thanks for watching.